Oh, hello, beautiful human, and welcome back to Idea Sex. My name is Kiara. I am your half-bald, holy, irreverent host, and today, holy isn't entirely, not holy like a priest or holy full of holes. Although I mean, we're all human here, and we've got skin. It's pores, as in full of pores, not poor us. Jesus Christ, is this gonna need subtitles? Take two. Welcome back to Idea Sex, where normally we try to make some sense of the human experience through the intercourse of ideas, but today I'm just trying to make sense of the words coming out of my face. Speaking of words, word of the day, a word I'm really hung up on, is sex transmutation. Could you use that in a sentence, please? Now there's a word we can unpack. And I know in the first episode I said something to the effect of, this channel will probably have nothing to do with sex, even though it's in the name. But I just read chapter 11 of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And when I say I just read chapter 11, I mean it's the only chapter I read. Reason being, a lot of people have recommended this book to me, and they pretty much all said the same thing. They're like, it's amazing, it's earth-shattering, it'll change your life. Except for chapter 11. Skip that. That shit's weird. And so, of course, I buy the book. And the first thing I do is turn to chapter 11. And so what I'd like to do today is read you an excerpt. And then we can all be confused together. And then we're going to try to deconstruct what the hell this man is talking about. Chapter 11, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. The meaning of the word transmute is, in simple language, the changing or transferring of one element or form of energy into another. The emotion of sex brings into being a state of mind. And then he goes on to describe the 3 reasons you would ever be in that state of mind. 1, the perpetuation of humankind, making babies. 2, the maintenance of health. As a therapeutic agency, it has no equal, just for fun. And 3, the transformation of mediocrity into genius through transmutation. The emotion of sex is an irresistible force, against which there can be no such opposition as an immovable body. When driven by this emotion, men become gifted with a superpower for action. Understand this truth, and you will catch the significance of the statement that sex transmutation will lift one to the status of a genius. The emotion of sex contains the secret of creative ability. This is the part where we all say, go home, Napoleon, you're drunk. But here's the thing. I think he's right. Sexual and creative energy have long been associated. The word create comes from a Latin word meaning to bring into being. So it's no wonder we creatives call our projects our babies. And this idea of transmutation is something that we see in a lot of places. The excerpt we just read rang very Freudian to me, and they were contemporaries. They were alive at the same time. Freud had this idea, he believed in this thing called sexual sublimation, which is basically the idea that everything humans have ever achieved, so throughout our entire history, is a result of redirecting sexual energy toward more productive pursuits, as opposed to reproductive pursuits, I guess. So the way I think about this is that the entire civilization we live in today is purely a byproduct of other people's sexual frustration, which I'm not 100% sure I buy into this. But it is funny to paint all of humanity in this light of like, we're a bunch of sad wankers that cope by building great bridges and flying spaceships to the moon. In case you're new here, this channel is all about trying to arrive at some fundamental truths by comparing ideas from different disciplines. And usually I like to include some data, but I didn't know of anything that related to this, and then when I was researching, I couldn't find any studies or anything. So if you know of some legitimate science that relates to transmutation, and alchemy is not real science, it has to be like legitimate Bill Nye approved science, but if you know something like that, do drop a note in the comments because I would love to know. But there's a lot of ancient wisdom that relates to this idea of sexual and creative energy. And so we could take what Hill and Freud and later Carl Jung were talking about and compare it to tantric practices or the Taoist philosophy of harnessing our life energy. But those are both kind of graphic, so we're going to stick with chakras. You may have heard of chakras, and if you haven't, they're an energy system that exists within the human body according to Hindu scriptures, specifically the Vedas. And it's this idea that along the vertical axis of your body, you have 7 points of energy. They can also be thought of as levels of consciousness, but each of them houses a different kind of energy. So I actually had my chakras and my aura read by a machine in Sedona, and there's your science. A highly scientific machine read my energy field and spat out this 20-page report with this diagram. And this was taken in my early 20s. I was in a difficult place and very shut off, and so you can see that reflected in my chakras. They were all like sad and shriveled looking, with the exception of that juicy root chakra, that one at the bottom. That is not the one we're talking about. We're looking at the one right above that, your Swadhisthana. I just butchered that like only a white person can. I'm so sorry. I don't speak Sanskrit, but that orange one, the navel chakra, is believed to house your sexual and creative energy. But those things aren't talked about as being distinct. They are two sides of the same coin. So to put this in perspective, the Vedas are some of the most ancient sacred texts in the world, and ancient India and a little bit of Pakistan had basically figured out this connection between sexuality and creativity thousands of years before Freud ever came into this world and said mama. He really liked that word. He said it a lot. So there you go. If chakras are new to you, this is what an unbalanced one looks like. And I just think it's fun to use a visual aid. I'm not like putting this forward as evidence that it exists. I'm not saying it doesn't exist either. On this channel, we try on ideas like little hats. And you try on a lot of them, and you keep the ones that make you feel good. With what Freud and Hill and later Jung and the Vedas are talking about, let's just entertain this idea. Let's try on the hat and entertain the notion that sexuality and creativity are similar, if not synonymous. And let's take this ancient idea and bring it into the modern day, into the era of hookup culture. This should be interesting. We are what Napoleon would have described as a sex-mad people. He has a very quaint way of speaking in that book. I love it. The issue today is that sex is more available than ever. I don't see the issue. And we spend so much time pursuing it. And this wasn't always the case. The economics of sex completely shifted with the advent of birth control. And so it used to be the case that women weren't putting out, is that what the kids call it? They weren't doing the do with a man before he had given some degree of commitment, because that would, put you in a very difficult, there would be a lot of social and financial repercussions for a woman in those times. And so as a result, they just didn't sleep with a man that would put them in that challenging position.
Phrasing?
As a result, people didn't have nearly as many partners as we do today. The word monogamy used to mean one person for life. Today, the word monogamy means you have sex with one person at a time, mostly. One person for life versus the average number of sexual partners in the US today, which is 7. And I know the first thing you're doing is like counting up and seeing where you fall. And if you're a dude, you're either like, hell yeah, patting yourself on the back, or you're like, shit, I need to play less Minecraft. But in either case, take it with a grain of salt, because it's an average. It could include incels and rock stars. It's also only the US. So, and I believe the world record for the greatest number of people slept with is held by 2 Dutch twins, the Falkens twins, which I firmly believe that people are shaped by their names. We become our names. So no shocker that the Falkens twins are Amsterdam's oldest hookers, and they have allegedly slept with 355,000 people. So 7 being the average smavrage. The point is, birth control was a game changer. The Falkens twins would not have their claim to fame otherwise. They would just have a litter of children and not enough nipples. in this blender of modern sexuality, we have our base of birth control. Now let's add in a little bit of Tinder, a little bit of Grindr, and just a dash of the incognito mode. Does it sound like a recipe for disaster? Because of these things, plus our limbic systems, we are conditioned to always be seeking immediate gratification, to be looking for the next best thing, to not hold the course. And this is also called shiny object syndrome, which usually refers to how serial entrepreneurs pursue multiple projects at a time without seeing any of them through. But it's perfectly apropos to describe the way some people pursue other people. And here's the thing. I think it takes a person of serious strength of character to say no to what's new and shiny, to say no to the distractions. The distractions. That's good. I'm gonna coin that. Hey, Oxford Dictionary, where's my $1 million for the word of the year? Distraction. Spelled Nothanks. But in all seriousness, can you imagine what Napoleon Hill would think of today? Not only do we have way more sex, but we spend way more time pursuing it. And for me, this boils down to the question I always ask on this channel, which is, does it serve us? And if it serves us, which part of us does it serve? Are we aligning with our higher selves, or are we being slaves to our limbic system? And Elon Musk, of all people, is going to bring this home for us, because there's this clip where he has a way of expressing what Napoleon was talking about, but it's like in the words of a modern man. And so just a note to all us sex mad Philistines.
And a great deal of, like, a massive amount of thinking, like truly stupendous amount of thinking has gone into sex. Without purpose, without procreation. Which is actually quite a silly action in the absence of procreation. It's a bit silly.
Well,
so why are you doing it? Because it makes the limbic system happy. That's why.
So here's the idea I'm entertaining. We humans are the ultimate creators, second only to our creator. I mean, look around you. We built this. We sculpted our reality. This is pure primordial power. And when you have sex with someone, you temporarily relinquish that power. And that doesn't even have to be an alchemical thing or a mystical thing. It could just be interpreted as the time, energy, and money, maybe, I don't know, that we put into the pursuit of sex and the act of it. Alternatively, if you retain those things, you literally have more resources to expend as you will. And I mean, that's it, right? Like, it is your creative energy. You do with it exactly as you please. And I think that's a big part of the reason we're here, to create, to build great bridges and fly spaceships to the moon. And there you have it. That's this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I promised this would be shorter and lighter than the last one. It was. Next 2 episodes, if I stick with the ones I'm thinking of, are going to be a little more serious in terms of subject matter, but never in terms of delivery. So if you enjoyed this, if you're tribe, please subscribe. Throw me one of these for the algorithm. And as always, I am down for some idea sex in the comments. I would love to hear what you think of this idea of transmutation. Until next time, stay creative, stay tuned, and stay blessed. The Falcons twins would not have their claim to fame otherwise. They would just have a litter of children and not enough nipples. Let's crunch the numbers on that. Where's my phone? Okay, so 355,000 divided by, we'll say they lived to be 80 years. They were sexually active for 70 of those. Wait. Oh, no. 65 of those years divided by 65. That's 5,461 people a year. Divide that by the number of days in a year, 365. We get 15 I mean, there's 2 of them. They're twins, right? So 7 people a day for 65 years. Their daily average is the American lifetime average. They're not hookers, they're cyborgs.